Welcome to our webinar from today, or better to say our coffee and consulting at your desk, about the Swiss deposit obligation for assignments from the EU within the framework of a valid collective labor agreement. I hope you are all well, and we are very happy that lots of people are actually attending today. So I assume that is something which a lot of companies are currently looking at, even it is not completely new. Before we start, on the right-hand side, you see the slides you can download while we have the coffee and consulting event, as well as on the right-hand side, you find a box where you can ask all your questions you have. And any question which is coming during the event, I will happily answer here. Otherwise, you still have the possibility to actually send us an email, and later on we will answer your questions by email. I don't know how much you had already to deal with that obligation, or whether that is something which is completely new to you. As an introduction, I think the easiest way it is to explain with a sample. So if you think about an Italian company which is usually installing cables or electricity or anything like this at clients. And they have now been engaged by a Swiss company to do actually the installation of the IT cables for their new IT infrastructure. Apparently, when the Swiss company was looking for a new provider for this, or for a company to do that, they were thinking about different companies and came up with the Italian company, which in their opinion would be the best party. So they sign a contract with the Italian company, arranging or negotiating a price for it, and in the end, the total of the contract price was 50,000 Swiss francs. Clearly, for the installing of the cables, there's also staff required, so it's not just material, but also staff. And in that 50,000 Swiss francs, both of it is included. They agree that the installation shall take place next year, let's say January the 6th, they shall start, and it should take about 2 to 3 weeks until everything is finished. So from that point, we now have to see in which canton, or which is the work location in the end, the employees have to work in Switzerland. And based on that, we do have to look up, and we look at that in a later slide as well, whether there is a collective labor agreement in place. If so, then based on that, there's an obligation to also to put a Swiss deposit aside. If we say there is a Swiss deposit obligation for that situation here in that sample, then what we have to do is, or the Italian company, better to say, has to put the deposit on a bank account or a guarantee, or provide a guarantee of it, of the amount which is applicable to that contract price of 50,000 Swiss francs. Usually, the maximum amount of a deposit is about 20,000 Swiss francs. So, in this regard, the Swiss or the Italian entity would receive the information from the Swiss authority that they have to provide them with a bank statement showing that they paid a deposit of 20,000 Swiss francs, which is then with the Swiss authority. Usually, first the Italian company will have to do the notification of the employees so that they are allowed actually to work before the deposit has to take place. You may know that 8 days in advance you will have at latest to do the notification. So first you do the notification with the labor market authority, and then based on that notification, usually there's an automatic email then coming to the Italian company saying that there is that deposit obligation. Up to now, you cannot really always think that there will be an automatic email coming. So sometimes there's no email at all, but the Swiss deposit obligation is still in place. So it doesn't matter whether you receive the email or not. The Swiss deposit, you will have to actually put in a bank account before the start of work. So before the 6th of January, if we say that is the start date of when the employees shall start to work here in Switzerland, you will have to put that in a bank account. Now, if we think about later during the year, then there will be, or there's a requirement that the Italian company will again have to do some improvement or some additional installation for the same Swiss company. And again, they will agree on a price, and the price might be now something like 20,000 Swiss francs in addition. Then what happens is that the Italian company again will have to do the notification for the employees so that they are able to work in Switzerland. However, because if they have already paid in the maximum amount of the deposit, which is almost in all collective agreements about 20,000 Swiss francs, then there is no additional deposit required. Basically, if they have done it once, then it is good. So that is as an introduction, as a sample to this method. If we look at since when is that deposit obligation, I have put down here now the 1st of June 2020. That is correct for a lot of the collective agreements where it's only started by 1st of June 2020. However, there is also from 2019 already the information or the provision from the federal law that there is a requirement that companies sending people from abroad to Switzerland in those specific cases that there's a requirement of an additional deposit. Basically, the reason for that deposit is the security safety for any entitlements based on the collective agreement that the company from abroad will actually consider that and takes care of it. And the Swiss authority is just with having the deposit, making sure in case the company from abroad is not paying it or is not taking care of it, that they have the funds in order to do so. So it is that Swiss deposit obligation is something quite specific and usually is more or less in any installation, electricians, craft work stuff. There you will find that in most cases. In Switzerland, the responsible authority for this is the Zentrale Kautionsverwaltungsstelle, which is a place in Switzerland where every collective agreement in the end is actually going through. Now, that Swiss deposit obligation is not only for foreign employers, like employers from the EU, it is also for Swiss employers. The same regulation, the same amount of money which has to be put aside as a deposit. So there's no difference on it. What is important in order to verify whether there is a responsibility, yes or no, that you look in the canton where the work is performed, whether there is a cantonal collective agreement in place. We have made here a short overview, and you also find that on the web page from the authority, in which instances there is a requirement to do something. And there you see the different areas where collective agreement is in place, as well as in which canton it's actually applicable. And there you see our cantonal diversity in the end, that in some cantons, in one sector you will have something, and in others you won't have anything. Like if you look for gardening, then only in Canton Ticino actually there is a collective agreement in place. And if you click on the web page on that K, then you find all the information about it. You will find, if you click there as well on that letter K, you will find the information about the specific collective agreement, as well as the amount of Swiss deposit you will have to provide. Here it is just one sample from one of the collective agreements. However, it is more or less similar in each of that. At least it starts usually with any contractual amount of maximum 2,000 Swiss francs. There's no deposit requirement, so it only starts afterwards. And usually there as well, with reaching the contract amount of 40,000 Swiss francs or 40,001 Swiss franc, it's usually the maximum amount, and then also the maximum deposit. As I said before in the sample, in case now the contractual order is for 60,000 or 100,000, still the deposit is only 20,000. Also, the contractual order or the amount you have to consider is in the end for material as well as for any work hours in the order. So both together. The authority in the end want to see the invoice and would like to see the total amount. The Swiss company in the end will pay for that to the company abroad. As said before in the sample as well, that in case now later during the same year, you may have a second order or an additional order to it. It always have to be linked to each other. Then there is no additional deposit required. In case, however, you have a second contract, something completely different as the first one, then the deposit requirement and the calculation for it starts anew. When is the deposit really required? It has to be paid before the start of the work or of the assignment. Now, sometimes because companies from abroad are not aware of it, but that also can happen for companies in Switzerland which are not aware of as soon as the Swiss authorities realizes that the deposit has not been paid, they will actually go back to the company abroad and will request it. We have seen with the client that actually they asked in the end to provide the bank confirmation about the deposit within 1 day. So it's not that you have then long time or there's a long period for doing it. Sometimes it is just within a day or 2 days you have then to provide the confirmation. The deposit can be paid either on a bank account or in cash, or you can provide with a guarantee declaration from a bank or an insurance company, but it needs to be one which is regulated through the FINMA to show that you have enough or sufficient funds on your bank account. Now, the deposit is then kind of blocked for the period the work will be carried out in Switzerland. As the deposit is, I mean, if you are a smaller company and that might be just one contract you have in Switzerland, 20,000 Swiss francs being blocked on a bank account is not just nothing. However, you only can get the money back after 6 months after the completion of the work. That means if we look at the sample from the beginning, that in January the works will start, and then during the year they see that there is the requirement of more improvement or additional installation to be done, but on the same project, and it might then be carried out only in June, then if the first thing has been done in January, then there is still the 6-month blocking period. So that will be February, March, April, May, June, July, until it will be in any case blocked. And if then an additional work will be carried out in June, then the blocking period starts again. So as it is still blocked, if we say end of June, definitely they are finished with everything. So they will only receive back the money by July, August, September, October, November, December. End of December, they will be able to get the money back. So from that perspective, companies try to find the possibility to have that guarantee declaration issued so they don't have to pay the amount, and it is really blocked for the whole period. We have seen more and more cases where actually the Swiss authority, when there had been no deposit made before the start of work, and there was no reaction then as well from the company from abroad to that request, that the Swiss authorities have imposed fines, and that also can lead to blocking a company to being able to provide services then in Switzerland. So that is really something you definitely have to make sure you consider that as well when you send people to Switzerland for rendering these services. So this was basically our explanation to the Swiss deposit application. I haven't received any question from you, so either everything is clear or you just still thinking about it, whether you have done everything correctly in the past and also have taken care that in future that will be considered. As said, in case you have afterwards any questions, then just send us an email and we will get back to you on it. I will then use the next couple of minutes to show you what you still can see from us. We have done, as you may realize, lots of things in the last couple of months. One is that we have, or our shop has a new face. So please visit our shop and have a look at it. You may find the one or the other thing which is quite interesting also for you. Then we still have our webinars. The next webinar will be on the 22nd of October and will be about social security matters between Switzerland and any state with whom Switzerland has a social security agreement in place. And then as well, our next Coffee and Consulting will be about the Home Office and any consequences based on that in regard to taxes and Social Security. Then I just thank you for attending it, and I hope to meet you soon, and stay healthy.